Hello everyone. Today I have a spine-chilling story to share, a tale of disbelief turned into a confrontation with the unknown. My name is TQ, and I'm here to recount my unforgettable experience that made me question everything I thought I knew about the supernatural. Sit tight, and let's dive right in. It all began when my university arranged for us to attend a military training camp, which was mandatory for students. I was assigned to stay in a dormitory on the campus of a military school. The dorm was divided by quality, with students who paid extra receiving higher quality rooms, while the rest of us were placed in the basic accommodations. I was one of those who got the basic room, and it turned out to be more than just basic, it was legendary. The building had 5 floors, but strangely enough, no one stayed on the 4th and 5th floors. People whispered about the mysteries of those floors, especially regarding room 506, which was said to be haunted. My friends laughed it off, and so did I. We were science students. We didn't buy into ghost stories. Yet, as luck would have it, I was assigned to room 506, on the infamous 4th floor. It was at the end of the corridor, right next to the staircase, which added to its eerie, isolated vibe. To make things more unsettling, across the staircase was another room that directly faced an old cemetery. The first night, I was excited. New place, new experience. We were up until morning, joking and playing games. We talked about everything from our classes to our future plans, and the room was filled with laughter. The energy was high, and nobody wanted to sleep. It felt like an adventure, but none of us realized that something sinister was lurking in the shadows. But on the second night, exhaustion took over. As soon as I drifted off to sleep, I had the strangest feeling. It was as if multiple people surrounded me. I could almost feel their presence, standing close, watching. It was so vivid that I suddenly woke up, my heart pounding. I still had my senses, but I heard footsteps, rhythmic like a military drill, approaching from somewhere down the hallway. Our room was next to the stairs, and these steps sounded as if they were getting closer, so close that I put my hand against the wall to feel any vibrations. I wasn't alone in the room. There were 6 others with me, but all of them were dead asleep. I tried to wake them, but no one moved. Even my phone was acting strangely, with no signal. I felt an intense chill, and a quiet fear started creeping in. At that moment, I whispered, "If there's anyone here, please, I mean no harm. I'm just a student." Gradually, the sounds faded away, and eventually, the night passed. I stayed awake for hours after that, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with questions I didn't want to answer. The following morning, I told my roommates about what had happened. One of them laughed and said, "Looks like you met them. Even a skeptic like you got spooked, huh?" Apparently, I wasn't the only one who had experienced something strange there. Some of my roommates had heard similar rumors from seniors, stories about soldiers who never left, about strange figures seen wandering the halls at night. Despite my logical mind, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was wrong with that place. Things escalated on the 3rd night. Our room ran out of water, so I decided to check if the other floors still had running water. I made my way up to the 5th floor, the supposedly empty one. The hallway lights were off, and everything was deathly quiet. The air felt thick, and each step I took seemed to echo endlessly. As I reached the top of the stairs, I suddenly heard a man's voice echoing down from the end of the hallway. "Do you need help?" I froze. The voice sounded neither threatening nor friendly, just there. It was as if someone was standing right behind me, whispering in my ear. I turned back and practically ran down to my room without looking back, my heart pounding in my chest. By now, my roommates were equally on edge, especially after my latest story. They brought religious charms with them, and some even prayed before bed. One of my roommates, who was usually the bravest of us all, even started keeping a flashlight next to his bed. As for me, I tried my best to ignore the strange occurrences, but it was getting harder and harder. Every creak, every shadow seemed to take on a new, menacing meaning. The atmosphere in room 506 had changed. It felt colder, darker, like we were not alone. I remember one evening when one of my roommates, Min, shared a story that made my skin crawl. He said that, late at night, he thought he saw a shadow standing at the end of his bed. He initially thought it was just one of us playing a prank, but when he blinked, the figure disappeared. He was too afraid to tell us at the time, but he admitted it later, his face pale with fear. The very thought of a shadowy figure silently standing there, watching us, made me shudder. On my last night in room 506, I had another terrifying experience. I was awoken again in the middle of the night by a noise. the sound of running water coming from our bathroom. As I looked around, I realized everyone was asleep, and no one was using the bathroom. Then a voice, unmistakably a man's, came from the bathroom. "The water's gone, how will we bathe now? There are so many of us still waiting." My blood ran cold. It wasn't just the words, but the unmistakable feeling that there was someone in there, someone not of this world. I could almost see the outline of a figure standing in the shadows, just beyond the bathroom door. I tried to calm myself, thinking it must be a trick of my imagination. I even covered my ears, but the voice persisted, echoing in my mind. I shouted, waking everyone in the room. They tried to calm me down, but I was inconsolable. I could see the fear in their eyes too, though they tried to hide it. The next morning, I called my mother, and she arranged for me to stay off campus. We told the administration I had a medical condition, and they allowed me to commute to and from the training sessions. My roommates looked relieved to see me go. Perhaps they thought that without me, the strange occurrences would stop. Before leaving, I visited a local temple with my mother, seeking peace of mind. The monk there listened to my story and, to my surprise, told me that my past actions had consequences. He mentioned that spirits could be unsettled by things I had done, perhaps unknowingly disrespecting them. He gave me a red charm to wear and told me that once I sincerely asked for forgiveness, the spirits would leave me alone. He also advised me to be more mindful of my surroundings and actions, especially in places with heavy histories. After that visit, I felt a little lighter, but the memories of room 506 still haunted me. Even now, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, expecting to hear those footsteps or that chilling voice. To all of you watching, especially those who might be heading to military training camps, I hope my story serves as a reminder to stay respectful, even if you don't believe in such things. You never know what might be out there, watching, waiting. Some things are beyond our understanding, and it's better to be cautious than to regret it later. Even after leaving room 506, I heard stories about what happened there after I left. My former roommates told me that, for a few nights, things seemed normal. They started to believe that perhaps it was just my presence that had stirred the spirits. But one night, they heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps again, those slow, deliberate, rhythmic steps echoing down the hallway. They described it as if someone were marching up and down the corridor, never getting closer, but never fading away either. They were too scared to leave the room, and they huddled together until morning. The next day, they requested to change rooms, and luckily, their request was approved. Another roommate, who had also left the dormitory shortly after I did, told me that he had experienced vivid nightmares for weeks. He dreamt of soldiers, standing in line, staring at him without expression. Their eyes were hollow, and they seemed to be waiting for something. He woke up drenched in sweat, unable to shake the feeling that the spirits of the past were trying to communicate with him. It took several visits to the temple and many prayers before the nightmares eventually stopped. Sometimes, I wonder what it is about certain places that make them so eerie, so haunted. Is it the history of the land, the people who once lived there, or just the collective fear of those who inhabit it now? I don't have the answers, but I do know that my experience in room 506 has changed the way I look at the world. It has taught me humility and respect for things beyond my understanding. There was one final incident that happened before I truly managed to put the whole ordeal behind me. It was about a month after I moved out of the dormitory. I had been trying to focus on my studies and get back to my usual routine, but one night, I woke up with a strange feeling. It was that same unsettling sensation, like multiple eyes were on me, watching me. I sat up in my bed, beads of sweat forming on my forehead, and tried to shake it off as a bad dream. But as I glanced at my phone, I noticed the time, 3 a.m., the dreaded hour. Almost immediately, my phone screen flickered, and for a brief moment, it displayed a text notification that vanished before I could read it. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, but then I heard it, the rhythmic sound of footsteps, not inside my apartment, but outside in the hallway. I lived in a small apartment complex at that time, and it was uncommon for anyone to be up at that hour. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, echoing through the quiet of the night. I could feel my heart pounding, each beat louder than the last, as if my body knew something my mind refused to accept. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. I sat there, frozen, unable to move. Then came the faintest knock, just once, as if whoever was out there wanted me to know they were there but had no intention of coming in. My throat went dry, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I didn't dare move. I just stared at the door, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. Slowly, the feeling of dread began to subside, and eventually, the footsteps resumed, this time moving away until they disappeared entirely. The next morning, I spoke to my neighbors, trying to see if anyone else had heard something. Nobody had. They looked at me like I was crazy, and maybe I was beginning to feel that way too. I contacted the monk again, and he reassured me that the spirits were likely still lingering, but they wouldn't harm me as long as I kept the charm and remained respectful. I took his advice to heart, and after that night, I never heard the footsteps again. That incident was a turning point for me. It made me realize that whatever had attached itself to me, it was not bound by place. It could follow me, linger around me. I understood then that the supernatural was not something you could simply walk away from. It was a reality that required respect, acknowledgement, and a willingness to coexist with what you did not understand. To all of you watching, if you ever find yourself in a situation where the atmosphere feels off, where you feel like you are not alone even when there is no one there, trust your instincts. Sometimes, it's better to leave than to challenge the unknown. There are forces out there that we may never fully comprehend, and it's wise to tread carefully when faced with the unknown. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more true stories from my life. There are many more chilling tales to come, and I can't wait to share them with you. Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember, respect the unknown, because sometimes, the unknown might be closer than you think.